Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Rayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udivayat Nastrayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter number 12, entitled Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back Home, Back to Godhead, text number 15. Manyamana idam vishvam maya rachitam atmani avidya rachita svapna gandharva nagaropanam manyamanamidam vishvam maya rachitam atmani avidya rachita svapna gandharva nagaropanam manyamana idam vishvam maya rachitam atmani avidya rachita svapna gandharva nagaropanam manyamana idam vishvam maya rachitam atmani avidya rachita svapna gandharva nagaropanam. Mayamana, realizing, idam, this, ishvam, universe, maya, by the external energy, rachitam, manufactured, atmani, unto the living entity, avidya, by illusion, rachita, manufactured, svapna, a dream, Gandharva Nagara, phantasmagoria, upamam, like. Translation. Srila Dhruva Maharaj realized that this cosmic manifestation bewilders living entities like a dream or phantasmagoria because it is a creation of the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. In the deep forest, it sometimes appears that there are big palaces and nice cities. This is technically called Gandharva Nagara. Similarly, in dreams also we create many false things out of imagination. A self-realized person or a devotee knows well that this material cosmic manifestation is a temporary, illusory representation appearing to be truth. It is like a phantasmagoria. Behind this shadow creation, there is a reality, the spiritual world. The devotee is interested in the spiritual world, not its shadow. Since he has realization of the supreme truth, a devotee is not interested in this temporary shadow of truth. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Param Dristva nivartate. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapidam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagadāmayam Dadati Svapadantigam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vidam Dam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tirubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Dibyad Brindaranya Kalpa Drumada Srimad Ratnagara Singha Sanasto Srimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastalabi Sevyamano Smarami Maya Mana Idam Vishvam Maya Rachitam Atmani Avidya Rachita Svapna Gandharva Naga Ropanam. Srila Dhruva Maharaj realized that this cosmic manifestation bewilders living entities like a dream or phantasmagoria because it is a creation of the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord. So these are the verses describing the inevitable detachment and renunciation of Dhruva Maharaj after having ruled over this planet for 36,000 years. And it's mentioned that even such a long period of time, because he was engaged in this way on the order ultimately of the Lord, ruling as a devotional service, he didn't become old and worn out like people who work for material desires and with material motivation. The next verse will describe how Dhruva Maharaj left his kingdom, which extended all over the earth and was bounded by the great oceans. He considered his body, his wives, his children, his friends, his army, his rich treasury, his very comfortable palaces, and his many enjoyable pleasure grounds to be creations of the, again Maitreya Muni says, illusory energy. Thus, in due course of time, he retired to the forest in the Himalayas known as Bhadrakashram. And then on, the standard of his practice of extreme renunciation in the Vanaprastha ashram is described, and ultimately, and perhaps one of the most poignant and beautiful descriptions of going back home, back to Godhead. Indeed, the chapter is called Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back Home, Back to Godhead. The liberated associates of Lord Vishnu came for him and spoke very beautiful words of invitation and open acceptance, bringing him back home, back to Godhead. Nanda and Sunanda approached him, smiling happily. The two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu said, "Dear king, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we shall say. When you were only 5 years old." Here's a very good example of how persons who count understand what we've gone through and what we've done in our life. Prabhupada has taught us that there are many witnesses to the activities of the living entities in material illusion in this material world. Even remembered when he was a student in the Scottish Church's college, and one of these professors was debunking what he considered the Hindu idea that there are witnesses and you will be held accountable for your karma. And Prabhupada realized, because of his Krishna consciousness and his pure devotional service, that this is nonsensical. And Prabhupada later wrote in one of his purports, "Where are there lack of witness? The sun, the directions, so many." So ultimately, the devotee knows that Krishna and his associates are not only watching our activities, but are being very, very pleased by them. Narottam Das Thakur, the disciple of Lokanath Goswami, whose very dear friend we will say something about in due course of time today, whose disappearance day, Bhugarbha Goswami, in his prayer to the pure devotee spiritual master, says that his fame, the acknowledgement of the activities of the pure devotee, are glorified and praised all over the three worlds. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities, and you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada at the Commonwealth Pier on his visit nearly 3 years later, in May of 1968, after landing there in September of 1965, remarked that we want a certificate from Krishna that this man has done something for me. Not popularity from a pack of, Prabhupada used the word, asses, donkeys. Dogs, hogs, camels, and asses praise those who do things in this material world which are seemingly glorious, but have no connection to the personality of Godhead. If a pack of asses says that you're good, what is that? And it's interesting, Prabhupada is making that remark, remembering how he came to the United States seemingly all alone. Even when Prabhupada met the retired subway conductor, Mr. Rubin, on a park bench in the Upper West Side, we'll come to that in due course of time in our Mangal Arti reading. His memoir, this Mr. Rubin, he seemed all alone, but he said, "I'm not alone. I'm with my spiritual master, and there are temples," and he also not just said, there are temples, devotees, and what is the third thing that he had in plenty? Books. But time is separating us from them. The pure devotee exists in the same sphere that Krishna and his pure devotees exist in that sphere, time is conspicuous by its absence. So therefore, the pure devotee is, when he comes to this world mercifully for the sake of uplifting the fallen conditioned souls, he is Trikalagna. He is knower of past, present, and future. We are representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the creator of the whole universe, who carries in his hand the bow named Saranga. Saranga, We have been specifically deputed to take you to the spiritual world. In Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day observance just recently at the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples were gathered and were speaking their homages, and I forget who brought this forth, which devotee, which disciple, but Prabhupada said that if you follow 4 regular principles and chant 16 rounds, I will bring you back home, back to Godhead. That is guaranteed. And even another statement, which I had never heard before, was that I'm so much appreciative for what my disciples have done to help me in my service to my spiritual master, that I am prepared to come back as many times as necessary into this material world until each and every one of them achieves perfection. But most of the time, Prabhupada said that yes, the spiritual master will come back, but don't make me do that. I believe it was Hari Vilas. He asked Srila Prabhupada, how do you show your love for the spiritual master? And he was thinking that Prabhupada would say something like, well, you have all these feelings in your heart. And Prabhupada's answer was, you show your love for the spiritual master by keeping your vow. You have accepted the spiritual master and vowed before the deity, before the Vaishnavas, before the fire, before the spiritual master. You keep your vow. Throughout his life, Dhruva Maharaj tried to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by austerity and penances. Now the mature result was that Dhruva Maharaj became fit to be carried to the spiritual world, accompanied by the confidential associates of the Lord. To achieve Vishnu Loka is very difficult, but by your austerity you have conquered. Even the great rishis and demigods cannot achieve this position. Simply to see the supreme abode, the Vishnu planet, the sun and moon and all the other planets, stars, lunar mansions, and solar systems are circumambulating it. Now please come. You are welcome to go there. Even in this material world, the so-called scientists, philosophers, and mental speculators, you put the scientists and philosophers, that's like a respectable, what are you? I'm a scientist, I'm a philosopher. Oh, you're in the same category, according to Srila Prabhupada, as the mental speculators. Yeah, these days people are so brazen that they'll be proud of it. And, strive to merge and you can create a multi-billion-dollar industry just to being a mental speculator. Strive to merge into the spiritual sky but can never go there. But a devotee, by executing devotional service, not only realizes what the spiritual world actually is, you see, it's in the verses, just to see what the speaking of going there and staying there. Actually goes there to live an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. The Krishna consciousness movement is so potent that by adopting these principles of life and developing love of God, one can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. While the scientist and philosopher go to the moon but are disappointed in their attempts to stay there and live, the devotee, Prabhupada is writing this in the early to mid-1970s, so he's taking a phrase that he very triumphantly used some 13 years earlier, the devotee makes an easy journey to other planets and ultimately goes back home, back to Godhead. So you go back home, back to Godhead, but along the way, the devotees have no interest in seeing other planets, but while going back to Godhead, they see all of them as passing phases, just as one who is going to a distant place passes through many small stations. And many beautiful remarks of invitation and welcome, one after the other. My dear King Dhruva, neither your forefathers, this was his wish, I want a planet even greater than Lord Brahma, nor anyone before you ever achieved such a transcendental planet. The planet known as Vishnu Loka, where Lord Vishnu personally resides, is the highest of all. It is worshipable by all the inhabitants of all other planets within the universe. Please come with us and live there eternally. O immortal one, this unique airplane has been sent by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by selected prayers and who is the chief of all living entities. You are quite worthy to board such a plane. So today's verse is describing how this material world, creation of the external illusory energy of the Supreme Lord, is likened unto a dream or phantasmagoria. The miracle or seeming incredible, simultaneous, one and different aspect of the pure devotee of Lord Chaitanya, especially in Narada Muni's instructions and conversation to Srila Vyasadeva in chapters 5 and 6 of the first canto, where he's encouraging, inspiring, and instructing Narada Muni, Srila Vyasadeva, to bring forth the descriptions of the name, fame, form, pastimes, and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is a different creation meant to bring about a revolution in this world's misdirected civilization. Prabhupada writes, that the devotees of Lord Chaitanya and their subsequent followers in disciplic succession have expert dexterity. Dexterity means you very can do things like really kind of efficiently and uniquely and intelligently. Kind of the word dexterity is more associated with more physical, kind of like gymnastics, acrobatic, but it also can be applied to intellectual, and ultimately real intellectualism is correct spiritual ascertainment, to discern matter from spirit, to discern the material external from the internal, and to show people the path to the internal out of the external. Showed expert dexterity in this regard, and by following the means of such devotees of the Lord, the whole world can be brought into order for proper living and ultimately spiritual realization. So at the same time that this world is a phantasmagoria and illusory energy, it is meant to be utilized in the service of the Lord. In the 24th verse of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, 24th verse, 4:24. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagno Brahmanahutam Ramayavatena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So people think that by activities one becomes entangled. Activities, desire. So stop activities and stop desire, and then everything will be all right. How activities in Krishna consciousness is so foolish. Sometimes they'll even say, "What are you doing? Wasting your life. Get a job. Get real." Can lead ultimately to the supreme spiritual goal is described here. There are various activities in Krishna consciousness, and all of them will be described in the following verses. But for the present, just a principle of Krishna consciousness is described. In the material sphere, when a person is doing something big, he's got big money, big fame, big bodily beauty, big strength, big. He becomes very, very proud. But a devotee, whether, Prabhupada said, Krishna can give you the entire world in 18 days, like the Battle of Kurukshetra. But what will you do with it if he gives it to you? Krishna is very cautious that his devotees don't become puffed up in the ordinary sphere of life like the materialist, for our purification. But we see in the exemplary, supremely exemplary position of Srila Prabhupada, he is the same pure devotee walking the streets of Manhattan in the Upper West Side in the winter of 1965, 1966, seemingly all alone, as he was 10 years later when his movement was in full swing, when he had tens of thousands of disciples and followers and multi-million-dollar properties in some of the most important cities and places of the world. He was the same. Not at all contaminated by name, fame, profit, adoration, and distinction. A conditioned soul entangled in material contamination is sure to act in the material atmosphere. And yet he has to get out of such an environment. The process by which the conditioned soul can get out of the material atmosphere is Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada uses the example, for example, a patient who is suffering from a disorder of the bowels due to overindulgence in milk products is cured by another milk product, namely curds. The materially absorbed conditioned soul can be cured by Krishna consciousness as set forth in the Gita. This process is generally known as yajna, or activities, sacrifices simply meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Krishna. The more the activities of the material world are performed in Krishna consciousness or for Vishnu only, the more the atmosphere becomes spiritualized by complete absorption. The word Brahman means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahma Jyoti, his spiritual effulgence. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahma Jyoti, but when the Jyoti is covered by illusion, Maya, or sense gratification, it is called material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. This world is not false. It is real. It is a reflection, perverted reflection, of the sublime substance, summum bonum. And a devotee understands how to uncover everything from its illusory covering and change it and offer it to the sublime spiritual reality, Krishna consciousness. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus, the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, the consuming agent of such an offering or contribution, the process of consumption, Jaya Advaita Maharaj was describing we were always kept busy in Krishna consciousness when we were brand new devotees. It was the term no gap philosophy. And it was understood that if you're always doing something for Krishna, then you cannot fall into Maya. The process of consumption, the contributor and the result all combined together, Brahman, or the absolute truth, all combined together, yes, are the absolute. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter, dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth, regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman or the Supreme. When the mind is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, it is said to be in samadhi or trance. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yagna. So Srila Prabhupada showed what this word anything actually means, completely blowing the mind of so many rules and regulations, conservative contemporaries back in India. Can you imagine that such a thing was, for example, that a Swami should not cross the ocean? A Swami can only walk barefoot. Not go to the land of the Mlechas and Yavanas. Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji to, let's say, blow the mind of people who don't really understand internally. He told his greatest disciple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, do not go to Calcutta. In Bengal, going to Calcutta is like here going to New York City. Get contaminated. But what did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta do to execute that instruction? He went to Calcutta and made the headquarters of the Gaudiya Math's preaching mission there. And he explained, I have not gone to Calcutta. I have brought Calcutta to me. Wherever you are, Lord Chaitanya, Advaitacharya, after Lord Chaitanya realized he'd been tricked in his way to go to Vrindavan in his transcendental madness, was brought to the house of Advaitacharya in Shantipur. Wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. So the pure devotee, Prabhupada writes, can create the atmosphere of Vrindavan anywhere by his pure and empowered devotional service. He can create that atmosphere anywhere he pleases to remain. Regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory energy into Brahman or the Supreme. Anything done in such transcendental consciousness is called yajna or sacrifice for the Absolute. In that condition of spiritual consciousness, the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, the performer or leader of the performance, and the result or ultimate gain, everything becomes one in the Absolute, the Supreme Brahman. That is the method of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada concludes today's purport by saying, since Dhruva has realization, a devotee, since he has realization of the supreme truth, a devotee is not interested in this temporary shadow of truth. In the opening verses of the Bhagavatam, reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Param Drištva Nivartate. Of course, this is the 59th verse of the second canto of the Bhagavad Gita. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remains, but ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. One who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. This is our daily Kartik meditation, following in the exalted footsteps of Satyabrata Muni. May this vision of Balagopal constantly remain in my mind. I have no use for any other opulences. No longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life, but such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. I remember when I joined, being like within having like a 2-week bhakti program, being thrown out into the parking lots and the streets in New York City, meeting all kinds of people. I didn't enunciate it or verbalize it, but I had this back in my mind, thought, well, I joined this movement to like experience, the ultimate truth, and I'm just so sick of this material. But here I am right in the heart of the material world. What is... But we're preaching Krishna consciousness in a mood of compassion. This is the most glorified and bringing us to the most intimate spiritual platform. One who preaches this message, Bhagavad Gita, to the devotees, Krishna says, and Prabhupada says, it's not, when you hold a class, it's not only just devotees who are coming. Why are we giving out cards? Come to Bhakti night. So we can all be there? Oh, no, we can't let you in. You're not a devotee. You're not allowed. No, it's the opposite. In fact, we say we don't want devotees to come crowding in, make room for the newcomers. So Krishna is saying everyone is a devotee. And that way of looking at people is the best way of looking at people. It's just like Srila Prabhupada. He wouldn't deal with like a reporter like he's a reporter. He would deal with a person like he's a spirit soul and say what is needed to be said for that soul in that particular instance. And certainly those who were looking for truth, looking for a spiritual master, and accepted Prabhupada in that way, can understand that everything that he was doing for them was done out of the highest form of love and completely trusting Srila Prabhupada with their very life and soul. Jayananda Prabhu, the original Jayananda Prabhu, he was older than most of the devotees. I believe his birth year was 1936. So by the time he joined Srila Prabhupada, he was 31 years old, whereas everyone was like Saradiya at the time was 16 years old, 18 years old, 20 years old. Mukunda Maharaj was maybe 6 years younger. So he was already had quite a lot of experience in the world, and he was a capable person. And when describing why he joined Srila Prabhupada, he said this: "I knew he would not cheat me." You see, when you're talking to people, you have to be very careful to give them enough that they're willing to take and digest. If you go too far, then they like. And what is that mechanism or reflex? I don't want to open myself up. I'm not going to go in too deep. I'm not going to get hurt. Can I trust you? Right? Building trust with people takes quite some time. Sometimes. Well, some quicker, some more. But these days, it seems more than previously. Hare Krishna. Should I ask for questions or go on to describe Kashivar Pandit and Bhugarbha Goswami and then ask for questions? The latter, okay. Maya mana idam vishvam maya rachitam atmani avidya rachita svapna gandharva nagaropanam. Srila Dhruva Maharaj realized that this cosmic manifestation bewilders living entities like a dream or phantasmagoria because it is a creation of the illusory external energy of the Supreme Lord. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 8, verse number 66. Kashivar Goshanira Sishya, Govinda Gosani, Govindera Priya Sevaka, Tanra Sama Nani. Govinda Gosani, the priest engaged in the service of Lord Govinda in Vrindavan, was a disciple of Kashivar Goswami. There was no servant more dear to the Govinda deity. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Kashivar Gosani was one of the contemporaries of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was with the Lord in Jagannath Puri, also known as Kashivar Pandit. He was a disciple of Ishvara Puri. So it's Lord Chaitanya's godbrother, just like his servant Govinda. One should be very reluctant to take service from one's godbrother. But because Ishvara Puri ordered these godbrothers or his disciples to do this, on that basis, Lord Chaitanya accepted. And especially in the case of Kashivar Pandit, he was serving the Lord in his Antya Lila, as we will hear. So I think we could sympathize or perhaps consider this a good choice, that a contemporary, instead of someone maybe less experienced or junior in etiquette, would help Lord Chaitanya in his, let's say, more vulnerable or more exposed situation. And of course, Kashivar Pandit was very, very strong. And he was the main kind of bodyguard or bodily protector for Lord Chaitanya. And as Lord Chaitanya entered more and more into the feelings of separation in the mood of Srimati Radharani from Lord Krishna, in those transcendental feelings of madness, such that have never been seen in this material world, very extraordinary. There were physical ramifications to those ecstasies that needed someone of the standard of Kashivar Pandit, the contemporary godbrother of Lord Chaitanya, to assist. He was a disciple of Ishvar Puri and son of Vasudeva Bhattacharya, who belonged to the dynasty of Kanjala Kanu. His surname was Chaudhary. His nephew, his sister's son, who was named Ruja Pandit, was the original priest of Vallabhapur, which is situated about 1 mile from the Sri Ramapur railway station in the village of Chhatra. Installed there are deities of Radha Govinda and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kashivar Goswami was a very strong man. And therefore, when Lord Chaitanya visited the temple of Jagannath, he used to protect the Lord from the crowds. Another of his duties was to distribute prasad to the devotees after kirtan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also visited this temple at Vallabhapur. At that time, the person in charge was a Shivite, Sri Shiva Chandra Chaudhary, who was a descendant of Kashivar Goswami's brother. In Vallabhapur, there was a permanent arrangement to cook 9 kilos of rice, vegetables, and other foodstuffs, and near the village there is sufficient land which belongs to the deity on which this rice was grown. Unfortunately, the descendants of Kashivar Goswami's brother have sold a major portion of this land, and therefore the deity worship has now been hampered. It is said in the Gaur Gonadesh Deepika that the servant of Krishna in Vrindavan named Bringara descended as Kashivar Goswami during the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In our householder life, we also sometimes visited this temple of Vallabhapur and took prasad there at noon. The deities of this temple, Sri Sri Radha Govinda and the Gauranga Vigraha, are extremely beautiful. Near Vallabhapur is another beautiful temple of Jagannath. We sometimes used to take prasad in this Jagannath temple also. These two temples are situated within a 1-mile radius of the Sri Ramapur railway station near Calcutta. This is a description of Sri Bhugarbha Goswami. Stephen Knapp, what is his devotee name? Nandananda, Srila Prabhupada's disciple Nandananda, who's been living for many years in the Devasadan Mandir. That's the Fisher Mansion, Detroit. Just as there is very little mention in the scriptures about the life of Srila Lokanath Goswami, in the same way there is little written about his dear friend Srila Bhugarbha Goswami. Srila Lokanath and Sri Bhugarbha Goswami were of one heart and mind. On the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they went to live in Vrindavan. Bhugarbha Goswami was a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit. Among his disciples were Sri Govinda Dev's Pujari Chaitanya Das, as well as Mukunda Nanda Chakravarti, Prem Krishna Das, and others. Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami writes, the 11th branch of Gadadhar Goswami was Bhugarbha Goswami, and the 12th was Bhagavad Das. Both of them went to Vrindavan and resided there for life. Srila Sri Kavi Karnapur writes in his Gora Gonadesh Deepika that Bhugarbha Goswami was formerly the gopi named Prema Manjari in Vrindavan. While in Vrindavan, Bhugarbha Goswami passed away and entered into the unmanifest pastimes of the Lord on the 14th day of the full moon in the month of Kartik. Lokanath Goswami and Bhugarbha Goswami lived together in Vrindavan as one. Srila Narahari Chakravarti Thakur writes about them in his Bhakti Ratnakar. Bhugarbha Goswami and Lokanath Goswami were world preachers. They were so close and affectionate to one another that they were like one body. In Vrindavan, Bhugarbha Goswami and Lokanath Goswami were regarded as among the principal Goswamis, as they were senior by age and experience to many, the foremost among the subsequent followers of Rupa Goswami. Narottam Das Thakur writes about Bhugarbha Goswami, with whom he had much affectionate association. O Hari, why am I addicted to this abominable path of karma? I didn't worship Radha and Krishna in Braja even one iota, nor could I understand the position of spontaneous devotion, Raga Marg. Swarup Damodar, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta, Raghunath Das Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Bhugarbha Goswami, Jiva Goswami, and Lokanath Goswami, I never offered a drop of service to their lotus feet. How shall I attain the goal of life? So this is from Narottam Das Thakur's Partana. Krishnadas Kaviraj is among the most exalted Rasi Bhaktas, continuing Narottam Das Thakur from Partana, devotees whose sole interest is in relishing the mellows of devotion to Radha Govinda and Mahaprabhu. He compiled the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, which describes the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya, and the Govinda Lilamrita, describing the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Hearing the pastimes of Gaur Govinda would melt even stone, but it had no effect on my consciousness. Not only have I failed to take advantage of the association of these great souls, but I have also neglected their associates and followers. What a sad story my life has become. My life and birth are all useless. Shame on me. Alas, alas, thus laments Narottam Das. So, Lokanath Goswami and Bhugarbha Goswami arrived in Vrindavan with the same mission as later Rupa and Sanatan, Raghunath Das, and the other 6 Goswamis, to excavate Vrindavan's lost glories, to renovate and rediscover the holy places associated with Radha and Krishna, in particular Raghunath Das Goswami, following the finding of Radhakund by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, oversaw its excavation and its being brought to the present position. The present Radhakund and Shyamakund were overseeing the renovation by Raghunath Das Goswami, and later and combinedly and maintained for quite some time after, as he was the junior and lived quite some decades onwards, Srila Jiva Goswami. So they, being empowered by Lord Chaitanya, found many of their transcendental holy places, and it's described here how Bhugarbha Goswami is understood to be Prema Vilas Manjari, as it's sometimes understood that it's not the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, but the 8 Goswamis of Vrindavan, including Lokanath and Bhugarbha Goswami. And as there are 8 principal gopis attending to Srimati Radharani, Radha and Krishna, each of these Astasakis has a particular assistant or chief servant or manjari. and that is understood to be these 8 Goswamis. Also on this day in 1999, 14th day of the waxing moon of the month of Kartik, Prabhupada's godbrother Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj departed this world. I think he was, if not 100, but 99 years old. He was one of the literary assistants to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, helping him to bring forth the transcendental literature. And he's born in a Brahmin family, and by Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada's blessing, you can read this wonderful story in Mul Prakriti Devi Dasi's compilation book of Srila Prabhupada's contemporary associates, Srila Prabhupada, a friend to all, how he had the idea that a Brahmin could only accept prasad from a Brahmin who was born in a Brahmin family. And he had politely but rigidly refused to accept the prasadam at the Krishna Balaram Mandir. And upon visiting Srila Prabhupada close to the time of his departure, had a very intimate exchange, and Srila Prabhupada asked his godbrother if he would accept a gift from him, and said, yes, whatever you offer, I will accept. And he directed that the Mahaprasadam of Krishna Balaram, which was cooked by his Western disciples, Brahminically initiated, be brought to him, and he accepted it, and he ate it, and he got the realization, he writes, or it's in the memoir, that I can understand that everyone, no matter what their birth or position, is eligible for Krishna consciousness and ultimately achieving complete love of Godhead. And from that moment on, he's already elderly, 1977, he lived another 22 years, he started preaching all over the world. And his disciple or successor, Bodhayan Maharaj, is a very nice devotee who is favorable to ISKCON and ISKCON's leaders. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Nadai Pran Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Just a technical question. I was wondering, what is the significance of Bhugarbha Goswami Samadhi to be at Radha Damodar?
Oh, I don't know. Why is it there? And
were they associating Rupa Sanatan, Rupa Goswami Samadhi?
That would be a logical assumption. They have the place where the Goswamis would wash their hands and feet after taking prasadam, and they still have that there after this, whatever they've done there.
There's a well.
There's the well, if you do circumambulation, and there's like a little goshala, and there's a well, and they say, no, but there's like a place, here's Rupa Goswami Samadhi on the left side. My memory is before they made this, pardon me if this is a frightening word, gargantuan. Anyway, so the point is that this is where the Goswamis all came and met to discuss Krishna consciousness.
So Bhugarbha Goswami was logically, we can infer.
Yeah, I mean, should ask someone.
Okay.
Why is the samadhi there? Is it a full samadhi? Is it a pushpa samadhi? Yeah. But if you do the circumambulation there and do everything, you're also circumambulating Srila Bhugarbha Goswami.
That's the thing, is that when you go around, there's like a little divot you have to go around also to do a full parikrama. So.
Right. Who here has good experience in the last few years? Is it still, you can still do that? They haven't obscured or changed? Okay.
Everything's indoors.
Yeah.
Trees, big trees.
Yeah.
Big bunch of daffodils right now.
Yeah. Anything else?
I was just thinking it also makes sense. I was thinking it would also make sense that he's in his samadhi in Vrindavan because he went to Vrindavan, and as Ram Rai Prabhu was mentioning, he's one of the Ashtamandris, which means that he has a very close relationship with them eternally. So, if anything, that could be a justifiable understanding as to why he was there. Did you hear that at all? It was just a comment
I didn't
for
really
everything in
hear
general.
it. With this microphone and ambient,
do you
you have to
prefer
talk slower.
Do you prefer I
That's
use
my-
the microphone or not the microphone?
I can hear you better, but you're online. But just speak slower.
I was just adding a comment to Hadai Pran Prabhu's question that he was asking about Bhugarbha Goswami and the significance of his samadhi in Radha Damodar temple. But I was thinking, as you mentioned, his spiritual form is Prema Vilas Manjari, which would
Right.
mean that he also has a very close relationship with
There you
them
go.
eternally. So it would make sense to keep him there.
Right, because if you're in a company that's doing very important things, then the close associates should have a confidential meeting room in place to discuss their plans for worldwide takeover or whatever, right? And yes, good point. All right, thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Lokanath Goswami Ki Jai. Oh, Srila Lokanath. Srila Bhugarbha Goswami Ki Jai. Sri Kashivar Pandit Ki Jai. Sri Kartik Brata Ki Jai. Gaur Premanand.